Howdy YouTube pards, Jack Spade here with High Noon Leatherworks, back again for another episode on the Hand of God holster. And today I'm going to show you some little updates that I did off camera since the last episode. And then I'm also going to do some dyeing today. So come on inside, up a little closer, and we'll get started. Alright, before we get started on the dyeing today, I'll show you what I've done off camera. I've done a little more detail work in here with my swivel knife, and that's all I did was come inside some of these leaves and petals and these stems and took my swivel knife and made some little tiny detailed cuts. You can see in here some of those cuts, and it just really changes the look of it, gives it a lot more detail, and you can see how nice that turned out. So I'm excited to put some dye on it today. And then I also did my burnishing on the edges because I hadn't done that yet, and we've done that in the past. I didn't figure we needed to go through that again on camera. And then I did some of the stamping back here on the backing strap, and you can see how that's really coming together now. And then I also went through and did all my stitching holes and punched all those in. So this will, the next video after the dyeing video today, the next episode will be stitching, and there will be a lot of stitching because this stitch goes all the way around this. So, and I do hand stitch everything. So I do have a machine, but it's a hand crank machine, and in order to get these stitches perfect, I like to do them by hand and do saddle stitches. So on the next episode, that's what we'll be doing. So today we're going to be dyeing. So let me get my piece of cardboard out that I use for dyeing. We'll be dyeing two pieces, the holster and the hold down strap. And I will be dyeing them front and back. I want to do the inside and the outside because I'm going with the fibings, and I'm doing dark brown. And if you look, it's medium brown. There's dark brown, so that's what we're looking for, is that type of finish. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in past episodes, but basically I took all the different dye colors that I have and took small scraps of leather and did a sample of each one for each dye color, and then wrote them on the back what they are. And I just put them on a key ring, and I keep them right by my tools. That way I can choose, or a customer can choose what color they want. So I'll shake up my dye. I've got my small container that I can throw away when I'm done. I've got my wool dauber to apply my dye, and I've got my vinyl gloves I can also dispose of when I'm done. Again, I've said this in the past on other episodes, you want to make sure you keep that dye off your skin because it will not wash off. It'll wear off after a while, but it's not going to wash off. So I'll pour some dye into my container. Give me a couple of rags. And these are just those rags in a box. They're a lot tougher than a paper towel, and they don't really absorb as much as a paper towel, which is perfect for what I'm doing. I don't want it to absorb when I wipe off any excess dye. I don't want it to absorb all that dye out of my leather. I just want to get rid of the excess. So, but it does work well enough to wipe the dye off of the lip of the bottle. And I'm going to do the back sides first. The back side does absorb more than the finished side or the smooth side. And by the way, I don't know if you could see it or not, but I did put my maker's mark on there too. And I just had a stamp made, ordered it online. Very inexpensive. So put plenty of dye on my dauber. And again, on this back side, I'm not looking for perfection or 100% evenness, or I mean 99% of this is all going to be covered up. When it's folded over and it's sewn, you're not even going to see 90% of it. So I'm just looking for coverage at this point. I want to make sure that it's covered, but if I make a mistake and it's not perfectly even one spot to another, it's not the end of the world on this side. The side you really want to be careful on is the finished side, where everybody's going to see it. That's the side you want to make sure it's perfect. And this side's much more porous than the finish side of the leather, so it is going to suck up a lot more dye. This Fibings low VOC dye does hardly have any smell to it, so it's not like you have to use it in a super well ventilated area or anything, because it's not real strong at all. And then I think I have enough in my small container to go ahead and do the edges. We'll see. The edges, again, I've already burnished those. I did that off camera, because you guys, if you've seen any of the past videos, you've seen me do burnishing. Just try to make sure I get the edges evenly. Make sure I get them where I'm covering all the way from the front to the back, where that burnishing kind of rounds that edge a little bit. make sure you're covering both edges, the front and the back. Get down here on the toe of the holster. I want to get that really good. And then I'm ready to do the finish side. So you can see I've got the back, I've got the edges. So now I'll do the finish side. And again, I'll have to put some more dye in my container. And you can see that does that bottle. So before I started, I made sure I had a brand new bottle of dark brown. Probably I'll clean that off even though it's empty. I don't want it dripping anywhere. So I do have a brand new bottle of dark brown dye so that I don't completely run out and then have part of my holster that I can't finish because I don't have the right color dye. Again, I can wipe off some excess. That's up to you. You can let it soak in. If you'd rather let it soak in, you can do that. It's not gonna, all it does is when you wipe off the excess, in my opinion, I think it gives it just a little bit more evenness to the dye. And all I'm doing is basically, I'm not really wiping it off as much as I am just smoothing it out. And depending on what look you're going for is going to depend on, you know, do I give it one coat? Do I give it two coats? Do I give it a heavy coat? Do I give it a thin coat? That's all determined by what kind of look you're wanting. And then obviously if you're using your rags to wipe off the excess or smooth that out, if you're using that on the area here that's carved, that's definitely gonna give it a little more depth because it'll wipe off more on the top layer than it does on the bottom or down deep where your cuts and your stamps are. So you'll be able to see that here in just a second as I smooth this out. How it'll almost give it a two-tone look. Got a little area over here in this transition where I need to smooth out the color a little bit. And again, it's not the point that I'm trying to wipe this off. I'm just smoothing that dye down and trying to get that as even as possible. You can see how it kind of gives that two-tone look. The depth of that carving and smoothing that dye down really gives it that two-tone look. When it's really not two-tone, it's just dark brown. So that piece is done. Now I'll go to my hold down strap, and what I'll do is, I don't know if you can see, but I have a little bit of dye out of my first bottle left in my container, and that bottle's empty. So what I'll do is I'll open up. Vibings always gives you a new dauber in each box, which is kind of nice. And I'll set this aside with the old bottle in it, and I'll leave my lid open. That way I know, I'll just leave it sitting on my workbench, and I'll know that I need to order a new bottle of dark brown. Shake it up real good. And then what I'll do is I'll mix a little bit of this new bottle in with the old in my container. And then that way, if there's any difference at all in it, that'll mix up a little bit, and that'll make that difference of those shades less noticeable. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. So let's do the non-finished side first. Again, the non-finished side is going to be hidden. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Now I'll go to my edge. Same as the holster, I want to make sure that my edge is completely covered all the way around. So there, my edge is covered all the way around the strap. And again, just like the holster, I'm going to smooth that out. You got those high and low spots from the stamping that we did on there. I don't know, it shows up on the camera, but it does still kind of give it that two-tone effect on those low and high spots. And you can see the strap ends up matching the holster really well. I do have a little bit of dye left, so I could either soak that up with my rag and just throw it all in the trash. I normally, if I have a little bit, I normally don't save that and put it back into the container because it's, to me, it's contaminated now that it's had that dauber in there. Um, so I'll probably just go ahead and soak that excess up with that rag. You can see there wasn't a lot in there. It soaked it up pretty quick. Alright, so the holster is now dyed on both sides. You can see where it's lightening up already on the non-finished side, the unfinished side, where it's drying already. So as it dries, it'll lighten up a little bit. There's the hold down strap. So next thing is to just let it sit and let it dry. Alright, that does it for the dyeing step on the holster and the hold down strap. So next thing we'll do is I'll let this dry for at least 24 hours before I go to my next step, which would be stitching, and that'll be on the next episode. So here in a few days I'll come out here and get started recording that next episode and doing some stitching, and hope you had a happy new year, and don't forget, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.